Have you ever stopped to think about what your own country, your own city, looks like to someone seeing it for the very first time? You know, an outsider. They notice things we just walk past every day. Well, today we're going to do just that. We're going to see medieval India through the eyes of three completely different travelers to figure out what they saw and, maybe more importantly, why they saw it the way they did.
So, from the 10th all the way to the 17th century, you have this flow of visitors coming into the Indian subcontinent. And because their worlds were so different from what they were seeing, they zeroed in on the little things, the everyday routines and customs that local writers probably thought were too boring or obvious to even mention. And because of that, their accounts give us this incredible and often really surprising window into the past.
And that, right there, is the big question for us. These accounts aren't just a list of facts. Not at all. Every single traveler brought their own baggage with them, right? Their own reasons for being there, their own cultural blind spots, their own biases. They weren't just describing India, they were interpreting it. Sometimes they were trying to understand it, sometimes they were just in awe of it, and sometimes, well, sometimes they were judging it.
To really unpack all of this, we're going to follow the journeys of three pretty remarkable guys. They're separated by hundreds of years, and each one left us with a vivid but totally different picture of India. So let's meet our guides.
First up, we're hitting way back to the 11th century to meet Al-Biruni. Now, this guy wasn't your typical adventurer looking for thrills or a merchant trying to make a fortune. No, he was a scholar through and through, driven by this deep, powerful curiosity to genuinely understand a foreign culture from the inside.
Al-Biruni's story is just wild. He was actually brought to modern-day Afghanistan as a hostage. But instead of just waiting around, he used his time to master Sanskrit, which is no easy task. He spent years with Brahmana priests and scholars, just diving headfirst into their religious texts, their philosophy. He really wanted to get India on its own terms, not just be an outsider looking in. What's so amazing about Al-Biruni is how methodical he was. Before he even starts describing the society, he lays out all the challenges he's facing. He straight up says that the language barrier, the completely different religious beliefs, and what he saw as a kind of local self-absorption were huge hurdles. That kind of intellectual honesty is exactly what makes his work so incredibly valuable.
So, when he tried to explain something as complex as the caste system, he went straight to the source, the Sanskrit texts he'd been studying so hard. He laid out the Brahminical view of creation, explaining how each social group was believed to have come from a different part of a cosmic being, Brahma. He was trying to present the system exactly as its followers understood it.
But here's the thing, Al-Biruni wasn't just a copy machine. He was a critical thinker. He argued that the whole idea of ritual impurity, which was so central to the caste system, just didn't make sense to him. He looked at the world around him and saw that nature cleans itself. You know, the sun cleans the air, salt in the ocean purifies the water. So he concluded that this idea of social pollution had to be, in his words, contrary to the laws of nature.
Okay, let's jump forward to the 14th century, where we meet a completely different character, Ibn Battuta from Morocco. For this guy, the world wasn't something you study in a book. It was something you had to go out and experience. He was the ultimate globetrotter.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? He was only 22 when he left home, driven by this unstoppable urge to see the world. And get this, his journey lasted for nearly 30 years. His book, the Rihla, isn't a dry academic text. It's a personal, action-packed story, filled with the sheer excitement of discovering new places and new people.
And this just perfectly shows his whole approach. He wanted to make the strange and unfamiliar relatable. He knew the folks back home in Morocco had no clue what a coconut was, so he compared it to a human head, with two eyes and a mouth. It's such a simple but brilliant way to paint a picture with words and share that feeling of wonder. Unlike our quiet scholar Al-Biruni, Ibn Battuta dove right into the chaos. He found India's cities to be these incredible, thriving centers of life. He described Delhi as this massive, jam-packed city, just overflowing with goods and opportunities for anyone with talent and a bit of hustle.
He was also just blown away by the infrastructure. I mean, look at this breakdown of their postal system. It was this super sophisticated network of horse and foot runners. He just marveled at the fact that it was so efficient it could get intelligence to the Sultan in just 5 days, a journey that would normally take 50. They could even use it to ship luxury goods like fresh fruit over huge distances. Incredible.
All right, let's fast forward again, another 3 centuries to the 1600s. Our last guide, Francois Bernier, a French doctor, shows up in Mughal India.
And he's not here to just learn or to experience. He's here to compare, to contrast, and let's be honest, to criticize.
You see, Bernier's whole point of view was shaped by his goal. He was writing for an audience back home in France, which included the king. His accounts were basically meant to be a cautionary tale, using what he saw as India's problems to show how much better European systems supposedly were and to influence politics back home.
For Bernier, everything, and I mean everything, wrong with India came down to one single issue: private property. Or rather, the lack of it. He argued that because the Mughal emperor owned all the land, nobody had any reason to invest in it or improve it. And in his mind, that led directly to ruined farms and a society that had only super-rich nobles and desperately poor peasants. He painted a really grim picture. In his version of India, there's no middle class at all, just a suffering population being crushed by a greedy ruling elite. He actually called the king a ruler of beggars and barbarians, and said the countryside was just barren and neglected.
But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive contradiction buried right in his own writings. He's saying the country is ruined, but at the same time, he's describing India as a global economic engine that exports so many beautiful goods that it's sucking in tons of the world's gold and silver. So, how could a nation of beggars be producing so much wealth?
So what are we left with? We've got the careful scholar, the wide-eyed adventurer, and the harsh critic. 3 men looking at the same part of the world who came back with 3 completely different stories. So, who was telling the truth?
Well, the real answer is they all were, at least from their own point of view. As you can see here, their motive really shaped their method, and that in turn shaped their big takeaway. Al-Biruni wanted to understand, so he studied texts. Ibn Battuta wanted to experience, so he traveled. And Bernier wanted to make a political point, so he compared everything to Europe.
For us today, their real value isn't in picking one and saying he was right. It's in layering their stories together. The contradictions and the biases are just as revealing as the straight-up observations. When we understand why they saw things the way they did, we get a much deeper, more complex picture of the past. And these ideas had consequences. Bernier's ideas about a degenerate East, for example, became incredibly influential in Europe for centuries.
And all of this leaves us with one final thought. These 3 men gave us an invaluable gift, but they were all educated, elite, foreign men. Their stories aren't the stories of the farmers, the craftspeople, or the millions of women whose lives they barely even saw. It's a powerful reminder that history is never the full picture. It's always shaped by who gets to tell the story.